So I had asked if Mom and Dad were going to be here today because they were planning on being here, and I had this whole thing. I was going to embarrass Mom with this. It was a good thing, but I was going to embarrass her about it. And it's about how, family, growing up in a military household. And we moved, I think I moved like 25 times by the time I was 25. And family was very important because usually that's all we had was family. And then on top of that, family back home in the States, when we were even over in Europe, is they made us feel like and made us realize that we were still part of their family. They would send us care packages. Mom was talking to her brothers and sisters every day, and Dad was talking to his sister very frequently. And, they would, even when Mom would get hand-me-downs and stuff from the other sisters, she was the baby. Then they would always have something small in there for me and my sister, like maybe like a toy car for me, or maybe it was whatever it was, something like a brush or something for my sister, just something showing they were thinking of us. And it made me think of the crisis that is facing the church today, because it's about family. One of the biggest crises in the church today isn't a lack of attendance. That's a symptom. That's not the main crisis. It's not a lack of attendance. It's not a lack of money. Those are just symptoms of the main problem. The overall biggest crisis in the church today is an overwhelming lack of connection. Imagine stepping into a church that embodies every expectation you have for a sacred place. Yet as you settle into your seat, haunting realization just creeps in and over you. Something is missing. You look around, you see a friendly smile, but no one seems to notice your presence. After the service, you get polite handshakes or exchanged, but these gestures lack the warmth of true connection. As you walk out the doors, the weight of loneliness just bears down on you like a heavy cloak, leaving you to wonder, why does being surrounded by people leave us feeling so isolated, so unwelcome? Why does my soul feel unfulfilled even after participating in a worship service? If I were to leave, would anybody truly care? Would anybody really notice? Experience is not unique. It's reflective of a growing epidemic sweeping through our churches today. It's not a crisis of money or attendance, I said. We're witnessing a crisis of connection where attendance has become an empty ritual rather than an experience of genuine fellowship. Sometimes people fill the pews, yet as often as they sit in church, their hearts remain untouched. The church is intended to be a family, but it's become a space where many people feel like they're just merely spectators, longing for connection, finding only distance. Studies paint a stark picture of the current state of the church communities. According to a 2023 Barna Group study, an alarming 65%, actually that's changed, I was looking at it last night, that 80% of churches are either stagnant or declining. 80% of Protestant churches in America have either plateaued, they're stagnant, or they're on the decline. 65% of churchgoers are reported that they're feeling disconnected from their church family. They don't feel like it's really a church family. The American Psychological Association notes that 40% of Americans frequently or always experience some sort of loneliness. The numbers represent real individuals. Your neighbors, your co-workers, fellow believers, grappling with isolation, even while they participate in a religious activity. In an age where technology supposedly connects us, many feel more alone than ever before. Social media platforms allow us to present these curated versions of our lives, leading us to believe that we are genuinely connected while we suffer in silence. Highlights a clash between digital connections and authentic relationships. Social media is not bad. It's just what you do with it. People may scroll through endless feeds of people's lives, yet still feel an aching void where true connection should reside. And I want to look at a story of two ladies. One of them is first, her name is Sarah. We're going to say her name's Sarah. That's not really her name. But as we've learned in life over the last few hundred sermons I've delivered, then I will use every single thing that happens around me in a sermon at some point. Somebody even gave me a coffee cup with that on it. But let's look at Sarah. Her story serves as a poignant reminder of this disconnect. She attended church every single Sunday, sat in the same pew every single Sunday, sang all the worship songs, listened intently to the sermons. She got an obligatory smile and a handshake before the service. But as the service concluded, she walked out feeling just as lonely as when she entered. No one knew she was struggling. No one reached out beyond the polite gestures. It wasn't until she joined a small group with another church where she shared meals and life experiences with others that she truly found belonging. Her experience raises some critical questions. And that first question is, how is it that the bride of Christ, the living, breathing body of believers, has become a space where so many feel unseen and unheard? How can we as the people of God be so close to each other physically, yet be so far apart emotionally, spiritually, and relationally? And most importantly, how do we fix it? To better understand the crises of connection with our churches, we have to explore the barriers that hinder authentic community. Many individuals carry the weight of previous church experiences. You ever wonder why people don't like to get involved in church? Because they were involved in church at one point. And that's why they don't want to be involved anymore. Many individuals carry the weight of previous church experiences marred by hurt or exclusion. These experiences create emotional barriers, leading them to approach new communities with trepidation. The scars of rejection and being looked down on make it difficult for them to want to trust ever again. And the fear of experiencing similar pain keeps them on the outsides. Then there's cultural skepticism. There are so many people right outside these doors that are increasingly skeptical of organized religion. Many view the church as an outdated, irrelevant, hypocritical. The skepticism creates distance, causing potential newcomers to hesitate in exploring faith communities. And to bridge this gap, we have to actively engage in conversations about faith and demonstrate the relevance of our beliefs in today's world. Many people hesitate to seek community because they fear judgment. We can be a bunch of judgmental people. Christians are known for being judgmental people. They may struggle with addiction, with mental illness, or relational conflicts and worry that they'll be shunned or they'll be misunderstood. We have to foster an environment where vulnerability is met with compassion rather than condemning somebody because they happen to be different. We need to create safe space for individuals to be honest about their struggles. Just like we wouldn't expect a bunch of healthy people to go to a hospital, we need to expect a bunch of broken people in a church. Our culture also promotes individualism, championing self-sufficiency and independence. The mindset leads many to believe they can navigate life alone. The pressure to appear strong and capable, it discourages individuals from seeking help or from seeking community, reinforcing the belief they must handle their challenges in solitude. And the demands of our modern lives that we have today. Work commitments, family obligations, social activities, if there are those, often lead people to view church as just another obligation on their to-do list. Genuine relationships can feel like a luxury rather than a necessity. And the hurried pace of life makes it difficult to foster meaningful connections. We have to reclaim time for community, prioritize relationships over just being busy. And that brings me to another story. Her name's not Emily, but we're going to call her Emily. Emily is a woman whose experience is similar to the struggles faced by many in our churches today. She grew up attending church, where her childhood was filled with vibrant Sunday school lessons and lively gatherings. However, as she transitioned into adulthood, the expectation of perfection became just a little bit heavy. The pressure to conform to the image of an ideal Christian created an internal conflict that left her feeling suffocated. As she began to grapple with anxiety and depression, Emily felt increasingly alienated from her church community. A comment from a well-meaning church member about her struggles only deepened her sense of isolation, leading her to withdraw completely. And slowly, as we've seen in this church and every other church we've been to, we see people slowly start to fade into the background. Her absence going unnoticed in a space that once felt like home. Years later, she stumbles upon a new church that emphasized grace and authenticity. And despite her apprehensions, she decided to visit, driven by a flicker of hope. The pastor preached a message of vulnerability, emphasizing that everybody struggles and God's love is unchanging, and community and connection. For the first time in years, she felt seen, she felt valued, she felt understood. It prompts us to reflect. Her story prompts us to reflect. Are we, as a church, creating an environment where those who are hurting and broken and lost and struggling, where they can find healing? Are we offering hope to those who feel hopeless? If we want to, all we got to do is turn to the Bible when it comes to a model of a church. We turn to Acts 2, 42 to 47. That is our church model. We find a vivid depiction of a community marked by love, marked by connection, and marked by transformative relationships. And here is our scripture for the day. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together, and they had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anybody who had a need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Again, Acts 2:42-47. This passage paints a picture of radical community. It stands in stark contrast to our current reality. The early church didn't just merely go and attend church just once a week for an hour on Sundays, if then. They immersed themselves in one another's lives. Their commitment to each other went beyond attendance at the building. It was about shared experiences and authentic relationships. The early believers were not passive. They were not passive recipients of information. They were active participants in each other's growth. They engaged in discussions, shared insights, held one another accountable, fostering a culture of mutual encouragement. This commitment to learning from one another is a powerful antidote to loneliness and isolation and a lack of community and a lack of connection. When we invest in one another's spiritual growth, we create bonds that deepen our connection. Meals were not merely acts of nourishment. They were sacred rituals. They symbolized unity and acceptance. It was through shared meals that they built deep connections, reinforcing the bond of community. So imagine the power of inviting somebody over for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, one of those things, and just sharing stories, sharing laughs, sharing prayers. Doing that around a table can break down walls. That can build lasting friendships. This simple act of hospitality can lead to profound transformation in our relationships. And the early church exemplified radical generosity. They sold possessions to meet the needs of others. Their willingness to share reflected Christ's love in tangible ways, demonstrating that they were deeply invested in one another's lives. The question we have to ask ourselves is, are we willing to sacrifice for one another? What would it look like for us to care for our community so deeply that we would get out of our own way to meet needs, to help, both big and small? Generosity is not just about finances. It also includes our time, our energy, our emotional support. Their gatherings didn't just happen on a Sunday. They extended beyond Sundays, creating a rhythm of life that emphasized support and encouragement. This practice reinforced the idea that faith is not a solo endeavor. It was meant to be lived out in community. And we can incorporate this into our lives by regularly checking in on one another, forming accountability groups, forming small groups. Y'all can do that, you know. You can form small groups. You can have your own Bible studies, creating spontaneous gatherings that allow for deeper interaction. When we make an effort to connect outside of Sunday services, we demonstrate that relationships are a priority. And their gatherings were characterized by gladness and sincerity of the heart. They celebrated life together, finding joy in one another's presence. This joy was infectious, and it was inviting. It was drawing others into their midst. When others see our joy, they're drawn to inquire about the hope that we have. Joy is not just an emotion. It's a testament. It's a testament to the work of Christ in our lives. Our shared joy can be a powerful witness to the world around us. Something that brings people in to go, how can you possibly have that much joy? And we can't just focus on ourselves here inside this building. We must build bridges and engage those outside of our walls. To effectively reach those that don't come into our church, we must actively dismantle the barriers that hinder connection. We got to prioritize hospitality. We have to create a culture of hospitality that welcomes newcomers and the unchurched. If your church isn't overflowing, guess what? You need to work on this. We need to engage warmly with guests, ensuring that everybody feels seen and valued. Invite new attendees to share a meal or a coffee or just create opportunities for meaningful conversations. I've had some great ones with Josh. He sneaks away when he should be working downstairs, and we chit-chat. This simple act can open doors to genuine relationships. We need to host community events, not just once or twice a year. We need to host events that cater to the interests of the community. Whether it's a game night, service project, outdoor picnic, the gatherings can create informal spaces. And that's where people can connect. Not just doing it once in a while. You have to be consistent. Use these events to share the love of Christ in relatable ways. Don't just open it up, host it, and go, we will build it, people will come. Remember, Jesus often met people's needs before addressing their spiritual questions. Establish support groups for those dealing with special challenges. We'll be doing this in the church later on this year, hopefully. Grief sessions, grief groups, addiction groups, mental health groups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These groups provide a safe space for individuals to share their struggles and find healing through community. By creating environments where vulnerability is welcome, we demonstrate that the church is a place for the hurting and for the broken. We need to partner with local organizations to serve the community. We started partnering. We have a partnership with John Humbert. We have a partnership with other churches when we do the summer lunchbox program. We just started a partnership with Western Maryland Food Bank and Walmart. We're partnering with Gateway West and other churches in the community for other programs. We need to partner with local organizations to serve the community. We need to engage in initiatives that address social needs such as food drives, tutoring programs, or outreach for the homeless. When we actively serve those outside of the church, we demonstrate Christ's love in action, breaking down barriers and inviting others to experience the transformative power of community. We need to create small groups that focus on relationship building. These intimate settings allow for vulnerability, deeper discussions, accountability, and promoting a small group engagement, ensuring that every single person finds a space where they can connect and where they can belong. Small groups can be a lifeline for those feeling ostracized by the church or feeling isolated, providing a safe haven for authentic relationships. And as we reflect on what all of this means and what it means to be a community of believers, we must commit to taking action. And we have to realize it's not about the program. It's not about giving out food. It's about the people. And the time for passive attendance is past. It's time for us, each one of us, to actively engage and the work of building genuine relationships inside and outside of the church. This week, take one intentional step to deepen a relationship with somebody in your community, somebody that doesn't go to church. Send an encouraging message. Invite someone over for a meal. Join a small group. Start a Bible study. We just decided to stop the Thursday night Bible study. Start a Thursday night Bible study if you want to. Start one on Tuesday nights. We've got the Tuesday afternoon one. Building true community requires action, not just good intentions. Every small effort counts, and you never know the impact it might have on somebody's life. You need to invest in relationships. Get to know those around your church, in your cities, in your counties. Get to know them on a personal level. Share your struggles, your dreams, your joys. Establish deeper connections that reflect Christ's love and grace. Vulnerability breeds vulnerability. And when you open up, others will feel safe to do the same. And embrace that vulnerability. As we share our lives with one another and those outside of the church, let us approach with vulnerability. Share our struggles and seek prayer and support. We better be praying with each other and for each other. Vulnerability is powerful. It creates bonds of trust and authenticity that can transform lives. Remember that your story might resonate with somebody else's journey. Maybe God's got you walking down a path you wouldn't have picked, but it's to help somebody else, to provide them with hope. Because we need to reach out to the world around us, those beyond the pews. We need to extend a hand to those who have yet to experience the love of Christ. We need to be intentional in inviting friends, family, colleagues, neighbors, and strangers to join our community. We need to show them the beauty of an authentic connection that we cherish in our church. The invitation could be the spark that leads them to discover God's love. I want to leave you with this thought. The very future of this church and the Big C church depends on your willingness to embrace vulnerability and actively cultivate relationships with everybody. Those like us, those that aren't like us. Are we ready to be the change agents that God is calling each one of us to do? Because each one of us carries a unique story and divine purpose within this community. We're not merely attendees of a social club. We're the body of Christ. We're called to reflect His love in a world that is desperately needing it. So I urge you, ask for some clarity. Pray for some clarity on how you can reach out to somebody this week. Pray for courage. Pray for courage to engage with those who feel isolated, or those who don't live the same life you do, who don't come from the same backgrounds that you do. They might live on the other side of the train tracks. They might live down the street. They might be an addict. They might be a prostitute. They might be working at a strip club. Doesn't matter. They got value. They're still a child of God. Step into the uncomfortable. I remember there was a time not too long after the kid graduated high school, and I found out that one of her friends had been struggling. She was working at Legs. She was into drugs. She was dealing with addiction. She was going from house to house to house, just scamming her way through life. So I go up to the wife and I go, honey, do you mind if an 18-year-old stripper moves in with us for a while? And she goes, is this? And she mentioned the child's, the girl's name. And I said, yes, it is. She goes, go get her. So I went and got her. And we helped her to get back on her feet. Let's cultivate a culture of connection, compassion, authentic fellowship. Let's build relationships that reflect Christ's love and create a community that draws the unchurched, those that have never thought about going to church, those that are sitting right outside these doors begging to have some hope and some love and some connection. Let's build relationships that reflect Christ's love and create a community that draws everyone to Him. It's not just a suggestion. It's a challenge. Because it's time to confront our fears, our insecurities, and our complacency. We must be willing to break down the walls that separate us, extend grace and love to those who feel like outsiders, even within our building. And as you go forth today, consider this. What if our church, what if this church, this body of Christ, what if we became known as a place where the broken find healing, where the lonely find companionship, and where the unchurched encounter God's love in profound ways? Imagine the ripple effect of transformed lives as we actively engage in building community. Because together, we can make a difference. It's one relationship at a time. So let's pray for strength, wisdom, and the boldness to actually step out in faith, to love others well, to be the church that God has called us to be, a place of genuine community where everybody feels welcome, feels valued, feels loved, a place where we not only hear this message, but we live it out in our daily lives. May we not just be hearers of the word, but doers, transformed by His love, reaching out to a world that is in desperate need for connection. So let's go forth as a community of believers, committed to sharing His love and creating a place where everybody is welcome. Let's be the church that envisions a transformative community that brings the hope of Christ to every single one who is seeking